Hi there, my name is Memo, this is my channel Houseplanty Goodness, and essentially it's a place where I like to geek out about my big passion. You might be able to see some of it around me and in front of me today. And in front of me is the plant that I want to talk about today, which is the Bryony Leaved Flowering Ivy. So that's a bit of a mouthful as well, and I'll put the botanical name at the top there as well. This is a very, very cool plant. And this is one that I was looking to find for a very, very long time, and I'll bring it in a bit closer so you might be able to see some of the detail on the foliage. You can see that kind of silvery hue to that foliage, and if I flip it around, hopefully, and it's not been bright enough so it's lost some of the purpliness, you might be able to see a bit of a blush of purple at the back of the leaves. In the summer, where there's more bright light, that purple at the back of the leaves is a very, very, very deep, deep purple. But obviously now, because there's less light around in the middle of November or December technically now, this is a plant that the backs tend to go a bit lighter, but that's fine. Still a beautiful plant. This is a plant that I think might also have the common name of wax ivy. I might be wrong on this one. This is a Senecio, and I cannot remember the rest of it. I think it's Senecio Bryoniifolium or Bryoniifolia. I'll put it up at the top, as I said, and you should be able to see it from there. So this is a plant that can also be a trailing plant, but it can also be grown up a trellis. And I've grown an upper trellis. Most people will grow this trailing down rather than upper trellis. But I tend to find, especially with this one, the way that I have seen, because this was a plant that was outside in the garden, growing in the summer, doing great. I was able to find this in a local plant store, and I was so happy because I've been trying to find this for a while. This is not necessarily a rare plant by any stretch of the imagination, but it is a common plant that not a lot of people know about, so there's not a huge demand, so plant stores don't necessarily get too much of it in there. And essentially this was a bit of kind of something that I was looking at for a while, but it became even more significant because it is very similar to an ivy. However, it's nowhere near as invasive as an ivy. And for all the people that are not based in the UK who think that ivies are a great houseplant, everybody in the UK doesn't think that. That's the politest way that I can say this, because ivy generally over here is like a bit of a weed in the garden. And for those who've been around for a while, they know that I bought a house recently and I moved in, and unfortunately the previous owner did very little to the garden, and I have been battling, and I probably will be battling ivy for a while, and I will be doing it for a while still in the future, and it's a pain. So this was a bit of a joke, as well as something that I wanted to get for a long time. This kind of hit real home after I bought the house, because I've been dealing with the actual ivy, and I'm just like, let's get some ivy that isn't invasive. So unlike traditional ivy, this has got very succulent leaves. So this is a Senecio as well. This is the same family as the string of pearls, the string of bananas, the string of most things, basically. Most of those are Senecios. I don't know whether or not the Senecios have now been reclassified as curios, or some of them have, I'm not entirely sure. But this is a plant that, unlike the actual ivy, so Hedera Helix, where that will attach itself to walls and tree trunks by having a lot of very small, very aggressive aerial roots that grow along the stem, that kind of dig into the walls, dig into bark of the trees, and that means they can attach to go up. This, I almost find, is very similar to a way that maybe a Hoya might attach itself to something. So this one, what it will do is it will wrap its tendril around, or wrap its stem around something, and that's how it attaches onto what it needs to grow. And as with anything that I've said previously, most trailing plants, if you give them the chance to grow up, they will get slightly larger leaves, and you can see where it's been left to climb, it's got larger leaves. And when it was trailing, and I'll show you some of the newer leaves, they are itty bitty teeny weenies leaves. And let me just bring it in a bit closer again so you can see the sheer beauty of this plant. It is very, 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 very cool, and not very difficult to get quite a bit of height and quite a bit of coverage on a trellis. this probably would have only been half full or even a third full 2 months ago. So this grows fast, which is awesome. And it does grow a lot faster, I found, when it's climbing up something rather than it trailing down. Did really well in the garden as well over the summer. I did bring it back in. Obviously, it's winter time. At the moment, I have got it in Lechuza Pon, but previously it was in, and generally if you want to have it in soil, you can have it in a cactus and succulent soil mix, and it will do absolutely fine with that. In terms of light, very much like a succulent, very much like a string of pearls, a string of bananas, a string of dolphins, all of those strings. This needs quite a bit of direct light, very similar to a succulent and a cactus again. So put this in a bright, bright window and essentially watch it thrive. I'm trying to think what else now. Watering, similar as a cactus and a succulent. You need to water it and then let it drain out and then wait until it's fully dry again and then water again. Fertilizer, I've been dealing with fertilizer with this maybe once every month in the growing period, and now it's still growing actively, so it's still getting that. If I see that it stops growing over some of the months of the winter, because this will be the first winter that it's with me, I would probably pull back entirely on the fertilizer and wait until I start seeing some active growth again in the spring. In terms of humidity for this plant, it doesn't really have a lot of need for high humidity. As I said, it is relatively succulent. It's got very waxy leaves, so it does generally, when you've got succulent leaves and they are quite waxy or quite shiny as well, it means that that plant is very good at holding in some moisture onto those leaves and not transpiring too much of that moisture. So it generally means that it doesn't have as high of watering needs. When I was repotting this, I will say that the roots are quite small, very similar to those of a Hoya again. And I do wonder, and I'll see if I can actually do some research before I edit this video, on whether or not this has got even a distant relation to Hoya, because a lot of it, so the stems wrapping around when it grows up and the types of roots that it has are very similar to that of a Hoya. It might not do, but I'd be really curious to see if it has got any relation to the wax plant or the Hoya plants generally. But yeah, I think overall that's what I wanted to say about this. A very cool plant. If you want to get an ivy, a real true Hedera Helix ivy is a pain to grow in the house. I think most people would agree with me on this one. They are a Spidermite magnet. This so far has had 0 pests on it, so that's a positive. I think this does also get really small yellow flowers, and I think that's why it's called the flowering Bryony, or the Bryony Leaved Flowering Ivy. The flowering part is where those yellow flowers come in. I think I might have got it at the wrong time of the year to see those flowers last year, but I might see them this year. I think from what I've seen, because Jane Perrone from On the Ledge podcast has also got one of these. Do check out, I think it's on her Facebook page that she was talking about this, because there's a lot of people that are classifying this wrong. And when I first bought it, it was given a commercial name from the growers, and I was pretty sure that that wasn't the actual botanical name, and it took me forever to remind myself again what the botanical name was, and it was thanks to Jane Perrone on the Ledge podcast that I was able to re-figure out what the name was for this, because it was very difficult to search for this, and yeah, it took me a while to get there. But very, very cool plant nonetheless. If you want to get ivy, get this one instead. There's 0 pests, it's not as fussy as an ivy, and it won't damage your house if it does do well, basically. So, but yeah, this is this beautiful plant basically. So if you've got any questions, comments, if you do have this as well and you are growing it in your house and you want to share your experiences, please do. I'd love to hear down below in the comments. But yeah, I think that's it for now. Hopefully you've enjoyed. Hopefully I shall see you here soon, and I truly hope that you have a great rest of your day. Thanks. Bye.